It's
Oh,
live, should have start. Oh, it should start now. Let's see if it's working. Yes, cool. And recording.
hi everyone. Welcome for joining us in this live transmission. We will be sharing also this video later on, edited, so that it can reach as many people as possible, also through my YouTube channel and my platforms in Facebook and so forth. So thank you for joining us. Today we have two very special guests
This
with
video,
us, Trevor Grassi and Alessandra Dapralov. We are gathered here to talk about a very, very, very special topic for all of us, which is the unspoken story of Amarna, also known in the ancient Kemet as AKHETATEN. And I'm quite sure that a lot of you that are already watching this transmission feel a little bit, at least, connected with the story of Akhenaten and Nefertiti, this very polemic pharaoh um, that there are many stories related to him and his family, his story, how he dealt with all the Egyptian priesthood of Ammon and so forth. So before going there, again, welcome Trevor, welcome Alessandra.
Yeah, thanks
Well,
for coming on the show.
yes,
thank you
yes,
so much.
yes. I don't want to miss that Trevor has been doing a remarkable job in Egypt, at many layers, not only ancient technology research wise, also in this kind of topics related to Hermetism, to to mystery schools teachings and all the encoded information in the temples. So thank you, Trevor, for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of what I'm working on definitely crosses over into a lot of it's focused on Giza really, but Amarna has definitely been a topic very close to my heart. I've been looking at pretty deep for a lot of years, and I've come up with learned a lot of this story, but then looked deeper into different sources. And yeah, when you first brought this up and said let's talk about Amarna, I was like, absolutely, that's a topic we could go deep on, do many broadcasts on, I'm sure. And yeah, I know you and I have been talking for a long time. Sean and I, we met at the Galactic Spiritual Informers connection, and got to talk a bit there, which was really cool. But yeah, I would also introduce Alessandra a little bit. Is that I've been talking with her for several years on social media, and we've just been getting into Amarna. But when I went down to Luxor, I got to spend a whole day with Alessandra. We went all over the West Bank, and this is an area that's not generally associated with Akhenaten or Amarna, but the fact is there is history there from before he moved and set up his whole city. Um, and yeah, he's Akhenaten is just central to Egypt in terms of geographically. He built his kingdom right in the middle, right between the south and the north, which was so emblematic of his whole message of unity. But
Yes,
he was also like in the middle of the timeline, the 18th dynasty. It's kind of, uh, excuse me, it's kind of right in the middle as well of the whole timeline of Egypt. So yeah, very exciting topic.
yes, yes, it definitely is. Just to tell you all about a little bit of my story with Amarna. Uh, from the first time that I went to Egypt, I felt the calling of Akhenaten. And it wasn't a calling through research, it was just seeing his face and then started communicating with him. Then I started to research a little bit about him, asking about him. And the beautiful thing is that in Egypt, they have so much love for him. You know, like you ask all the Bedouin, our friends, our family, you know, well, I call them family, you know, my Bedouin friends and the people there, my people as well, you know, and yeah, they share so much love for AKHETATEN, and it's even like there is this flair of waiting for him to return at some point. You know, his teachings, his ways. It's a very Christic kind, a very the frequency of a Christic consciousness, you know, of that being that revolutionizes history, that brings unity, that brings truth, that brings righteousness, and that the story at some point becomes incomplete. And then through that incompletion, there is this longing for that embodied being to come back. And I do believe that part of that message is embodying that unity consciousness, that unified consciousness within. You know, I do feel that that is the main teaching, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's a lot of crossover to all the later religions and to monotheism. He was basically the foundation stone of all that would come later. That's tied with there's a lot of what Alessandra and I have been talking about too, is how it's tied in with the group called the Essenes, which Jesus was actually an Essene. Yeshua, he was which was a Jewish sect, but they were like a mystery school and very interesting teachings, very pristine, pure. Strict set of protocols they lived by. Is a very interesting part of the history. But yeah, it does tie into Jewish, Christian, even Muslim history. All of that is blended together in Amarna, which makes it such an interesting topic too. But yeah, maybe I was gonna say maybe Alessandra, you could just introduce yourself a little bit before we start getting too deep into it. If you want
With
to say hi at least and
Okay. Hi, everyone. And my favorite topic.
yeah.
So on the earthly, in my life, I worked as a nurse, a general nurse and a psychiatric nurse, but I studied Reiki and crystal healing and, you know, the usual for a kind of people. But 11 years of age, which is like over 60 years ago, I saw a very old Hollywood movie called The Egyptian. And it was the story of Sinuhe. But I don't know what the person who wrote this book, I think his name was Walter Mikari. It was the story of Sinuhe, but Sinuhe actually lived in the 12th dynasty with Amenemhet the first and Senwosret the first. But he chose, for whatever reason, instead of those kings, to place Akhenaten in his book. And I was 11, and sorry, I remember sitting by the coffee table. Bear with me, sorry. Sitting by the coffee table, and I remember how I was sitting, seeing the beginning of this movie where Akhenaten was bowed in prayer to the rising son of Theaten. And later on, there were various scenes in the movie, and I couldn't explain as an 11-year-old child the feelings that I had in my body, but it affected me greatly. And from that day forward, I was very passionate about Akhenaten, and read whatever I could, and had this longing for many years to go to Amarna. And I've been back twice, in 2010 and 2017, but not for long enough, because you've got the security police, and I had grand visions of wandering at will and enjoying myself being there. But one day I'll have more time. So Akhenaten, yes, and I agree with everything. Like, he taught unity consciousness. And I was just, what you said, Trevor, I was just sitting here thinking today, like, we know it was the middle of Egypt. And yes, one of the reasons was the balance, the harmony, the bringing the two together into union.
Yeah. bridging the past and the future, as well as the North and the South all at once.
The North and the South. And I also, if you give me 5 minutes at some point, I'll talk about, you know, I was talking about the 12th and the 18th dynasties, the connections, the
Yeah,
Eyes of Horus.
very
So I
important.
can do that now or later. It's up to YssaH. It's just a little
However
story
you
that I
feel
have.
like, however you feel like, do you want to talk about the dynasties you said?
Well, if you have 5 minutes, yes, please. Because
Well,
there's definitely, yes, Trevor?
well, I was just going to say that's a very important topic related to Akhenaten that I've actually never heard anyone else talk about. It is one of the things that you told me about, which was very interesting to me because we were talking about, you know, Akhenaten was the root, the source of so much of this stuff to come later in monotheism and all of that. But there was this, it seemed like it was kind of an echo from the 12th dynasty that potentially there was a lot of the same souls or a lot of the same teachings,
Yes.
kind
Yes.
of had this little thing um, that ended up coming back for a bigger version of that in the 18th. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
please,
I would love to hear more about that.
please do.
Okay. Okay, so 5 minutes, that's all. So when I was in my early 20s, and this is in the days of von Daniken, when Chariots of Gods first came out, and there were like hardly any books about this sort of thing. So I was in my early 20s, and like it was the early 70s, I think. And I was in like a small local newsagent. And I saw these two books on the shelf. One was called The Eyes of Horus, and it also had the second book, which was called The Lord of the Horizon. Now, these were written by Joan Grant, who had far memory. So these two books are about her lifetime as Ra-Ab-Hotep, and she was a male, who was the son of the nomarch of the Oryx. So back in that time, during the 11th dynasty, as happens, the kings, pharaohs, had become despots, depraved. The people were suffering, they were poor, ill-treated, they had no rights. And so the Eyes of Horus, or the companions of Horus, Shamsu-Hor, whatever we choose to call them, incarnated en masse at that time, as they do. Same as in the time of Yeshua and now. So the leader of the Eyes of Horus was called Roidan, and he lived in the Nome of the Hare. And his companions who helped him with all of this, including Ra-Ab-Hotep, who was the son of the nomarch, lived on the other side, on the east bank, in the Nome of the Oryx. So they had this, and it took many years. They had a plan to overthrow the 11th dynasty and replace Menhet, who was to become pharaoh, with Amen-Emhet, who became Amen-Emhet I. So there were many of the companions of Horus alive at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But having told you that, I began to feel later, I began to think. So the Nome of the Hare and the Nome of the Oryx, what if the Nome of the Oryx was where Akhenaten went to build Amarna? Like obviously his mother, father, the Aten, shimmering light of all, guided him to there. But why? Anyway, when I did some research to find out where the Nome of the Oryx actually was, it was in Minya. It's in Minya. And it's where he built AKHETATEN. So it was the Nome of the Oryx. And on the opposite bank, where the leader of the companions of Horus, the Eyes of Horus was, the leader, was the Nome of the Hare on the opposite bank. And that's where Hermopolis is, where the temple of Thoth was, Jehuti. And this is unique, apparently, to the Nomes of the Hare. They were all high priests of Jehuti.
Yeah.
So again, you've got Jehuti always comes up.
Yes.
So, I mean, how many times, is it a coincidence? I don't think so. So I believe that all of those souls who were the companions of Horus in the 12th dynasty reincarnated again into the 18th dynasty, especially into the time of Akhenaten and family.
Yes. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. As Trevor said, that's the first time that I hear about that correlation with the presence of them with as priests also for Akhenaten. And when you were talking about the ark, I remember when I was in Egypt. I was living in Luxor in West Bank, actually, in front of the Mountain uh, for 2 years. Yes.
That's
And
where Alessandra is now, just so people know. Alessandra also lives on the West Bank. That's how I met her there. Just to add that in.
exactly. And those 2 years were of pure connection, of course, not only with Akhenaten, yet also with other beings and consciousnesses that live there underground of the mountain, stargates. Lot of things going on there. A lot of things going on there. They would come and visit me every day, every night. It's like, okay, you're here. Come on, let's chat.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would just listen, like some bells, like tingling, and then I would say like, okay, they're here. So yeah, I would go and have my conversations with them. But anyway, so I was very fortunate to dive into many parts of the desert that are not known, that barely no one goes to. That they're in the desert, you need to go with the specific groups. They don't allow you to go by yourself. Not only to the back part of the Valley of the Kings, for the ones that that won't know what the Red Mountain is where the Valley of the Kings and the Queens are. So it is this huge, massive place for stargates, beyond the connection underground with other beings and so forth. So, and behind, they don't allow you to go, which is like the plenty, like all of the desert, like all you can see is rocks, desertic rocks in many shapes. And I had the opportunity to go to several places and see through the eyes of Akhenaten. Of course, the landscape was different, but there were things we know, the frequency of the memory, it's imprinted there. So as I would go through the desert, I would go seeing through his eyes. And one of the things that he told me, because there is a very specific alignment with the city, the golden city that has recently been discovered, Malkata, the Malkata Palace, and then all the way behind. Well, I have been all the way behind the desert, and there are in very specific rock formations where there are still things there. But I do also, what I was saying, one of the things that I received is that while he was still there in Thebes, he received the message that he needed to move the capital when he became pharaoh to Amarna, AKHETATEN. And there were many reasons for that, not only due to the anomalies that the electric current of that land has, or that was already there before he went there. He also needed to take the ark to a safe place due to all the things that would be happening, to protect the ark. And that's why he created the steles around that place, the boundary steles that are called, for the ones that doesn't know what the boundaries stela are these huge, let's say, monoliths of like these huge stones carved in the mountain that have very specific prayers and images of AKHETATEN, Nefertiti, and his children, and they are praising or rising prayers as how it is related to the Aten. And energetically for me, and also this is a very important message, that the Aten also meant the plasma also coming, that they were generating, not only coming from the sun, yet the plasma that was meant to be protected coming from the Ark of the Covenant. And if actually you look at the prayers, I will read that later. I will just want also to look how what you all think about this. But if we see the prayers in the stelas, he even says constructing, in other words, of course, a house for the Aten, like meaning this huge primordial force of life that was held through the Ark of the Covenant. And we know that he had a lot of technology. He even had a lab in Serabit El Hadim. Did anyone had an opportunity to go to Serabit El Hadim?
You know.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Have you been there?
No, but I know what was there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I haven't been there either, but it sounds like, I mean, a lot of what you're saying is ringing true, especially. Well, we went to Malkata, actually. Alessandra gave me an awesome tour there, which is really an interesting point to bring up too. Maybe we can get into a little throughout this conversation. But yeah, YssaH, Dr. Hawass, he's bringing all this attention to Malkata now, and he's, like you say, he's calling it the Golden City, and you know, all of this as we're having these huge breakthroughs from some of my friends in Italy there up at Giza. But yeah, he's not wrong necessarily to bring attention to this, because this is a very interesting piece of history. This is part of what's tying Akhenaten actually to Luxor, Thebes, a different location than Amarna, which, as Alessandra was saying, this is Minya is the district where Tel El Amarna is, or AKHETATEN. Those are both kind of words for his kingdom that he set up there. So yeah, the Malkata was amazing, interesting stuff that at least at some point in this conversation, I'd like to ask Alessandra to say a little more about that. There's more being uncovered there now too, all over the West Bank of Luxor. And we've talked a lot about the Theban Hills and what else is under there. So
Yes.
yeah, I just want to stick that in there, but maybe we can get back to
Sorry, when we met, yeah, it's such a powerful place. Such a powerful place. For the ones that don't know, Malkata is known as a palace where Akhenaten lived in his first years. Alessandra will also have more to say about that. But yeah, all these, I don't know if you have felt all that way, but we all have been, well, you and Trevor have been in Amarna as well. But if you compare the frequencies that there are in Amarna and in Malkata, for instance, when you reach Amarna, there is so many veils to remove to connect actually to the information that is underground. It's like if energetically, like an energetic bomb had collapsed on the land, and to reach into the information, I had to the core of it, I had to remove layers, layers, and layers of distortion that actually can be translated also in the distortion of the story of Akhenaten. You know, a lot of, but yeah. Do you want to say anything about Amarna? I mean, about Malkata, the palace where we went to meditate.
Can you refresh me because we went like 20 places. Yeah, we meditated a lot of places. Can you a little more content?
The
Yeah.
one, yeah, and I named Sayed, right? Like if there was just one Sayed.
Yeah, there's two sides.
No, meditating with Syed. All right, you just described technical places.
Which one?
Yeah. Most guys in Egypt are named Syed Ahmed. Probably about 50% of them at least. And most places you go are meditation spots. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, it would take me longer. I can refresh you right now. In the meantime, if you want to share, Alessandra, about Malkata, perhaps that will refresh also your mind.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying to Trevor in the short time we were there, because we went at duskish, so we didn't have a lot of time. And I walk there often because I just love to go there. And I sit on what remains of the bricks of Akhenaten's palace. So one day, and this is something to do with what you were relating, YssaH. One day I was sitting there on the bricks and I closed my eyes and I could see Akhenaten walking down the steps into a tunnel and into the mountain. And it's not a long, long way, but I could see him going down the steps from his palace through a tunnel and into the mountain. And like you were saying, like it's a whole other world. Like, yes, it's a stargate, and it also has the Akhet. But it's a huge, huge stargate. And there are so many beings in there from this world and other worlds, other dimensions. But again, I feel like Djibouti is like oversees what happens there. And I also saw, like, it was like a big spinning globe of the earth. I could see that. And I'd never seen that movie. I think it's Doctor Strange. I'd never seen it. But a couple of years later, my husband Muhammad was watching this movie, Doctor Strange. And suddenly, here's this globe, like just hanging in the middle of the room. I went, oh, that's it. There's one like that inside the mountain. Down.
Yeah.
So there's so much happening there. And like everything else, they don't want us to know.
Yeah. I have a story that I want to share. I was once walking with a brother for me. You know, he was the one that took me to every part of the desert that is barely known, even to Napta Playa. You know, he took me all the way to Napta Playa. And one day we would go often, and we were there for the sunset. So he was preparing everything, and he told me, go ahead, you know, walk, because I wanted to go to a very specific place that was calling me. I know that there are a lot of things on there and related to them, you know, mainly to Nefertiti. I won't say, you know, it's nothing related to her body. No, other things. And and as I was walking there, I saw first fox, you know, those tiny ones, cute ones, looking at me. And then I say, who are you? You know? And then he went playfully running in the same direction that I was heading to. And then I had to climb a little bit up to go to the place that I was going to give a gift there, coming from precisely Amarna, a huge alabaster heart-shaped crystal in a very specific cave. So as I was climbing up, I saw a coyote, and then I said, "Ooh, And then it stared at me. And I said, will you allow me to go? And immediately he left. He went in the same direction that I was meant to go. So then I started moving forward, climbing up. And by the time that I reached the top, I heard like, and you know, like when like a coyote is beaten. And then I look down to see what was there. And there was a black wolf. And this black wolf is very famous. He's being related to Anubis. And there, people in the village talk a lot about the wolves and that there is a very specific wolf that comes every once and then. And so I looked at it and I said, I'm here. You know, like, I'm here. You know, it's like, shall I run? Shall I? It's part of it, you know? So then I went to the cave. Anubis came, it kept into like following his pathway into his own cave. And yeah, I did what it was meant to do. But why I wanted to share this story is because the desert is alive and so vibrantly alive. Every rock, every particle of sand, the air, the animals that are there, the stories that we listen through the air. It's so alive. And sometimes when we think about desert and what happened after the last cataclysm, we related it to death. You know, it's like there was before a lot of green and a lot of water and and of course there are different kinds of atmospheres. However, the desert is showing to us, as how I see it and as how I have received also with messages of AKHETATEN, is that that's what's showing to us what happened to the heart of Egypt, that at some point it became dry. It's not that it's not alive, it's quite alive and quite intense. It's very important to bring in the waters again, which is the truth, the transparency of the emotions of the who I am, you know? And yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah, there's spirits there in certain parts of the land that are waking up, it seems, and coming back and helping other people wake up and stuff. Um, it's yeah, I'm thinking just about speaking a little bit more to some of the basics of Akhenaten because we're already kind of jumping into some of the areas around him that are more obscured and far less people know. But just to say something about who he really was for starters, um, it's like Alessandra says when she first saw him, she had a reaction, and that's a very common theme. The first time someone sees a statue of Akhenaten, they have a reaction like, "What is going on with this guy?" Because the Egyptians were absolute masters at copying the exact facial features, the physiognomy of the structure of the pharaoh's faces. They could reproduce them exactly. And when you see Akhenaten, you realize he has these features that are not like any other person in Egypt. Very curved, like womanly hips almost. A lot of people don't know what to make of his physical features. And so it's kind of shocking, and it has that effect of like, I don't know, people realize there was something different about him, quite obviously, and then all of his statues are like 12 feet tall or 10 feet tall. So yeah, you have to wonder what's going on with that. Why, um he was something different. But yeah, we also had like a little owl came and visited us while we were there too. Um, uh,
Hmm.
a little bit so cute.
Yeah. I was wondering what
I
you
don't
guys think of the connection between like Akhenaten and Nefertiti and the elongated skulls and like pointing to like the constellation of Sirius and some other possible like long skulls around the planet that exist that connect with places like that. And like a lot of, or if you were going into different star origins of DNA, a lot of Egypt points to both, like, with Orion's belt and Sirius and the Pleiades, and the Key of Solomon pointing to a point of in the Pleiades, and some others. They're like in the center with Sagittarius. Any thoughts on that with what you discovered?
Yeah, well, it seemed like he was so unique physiologically that it's like, a lot of people say he was an ET, if any pharaoh ever was, or that he was from somewhere else, or that he was a soul that came in, at least from that was unique in some way. Um, a lot of people think it was about restoring a genetic blueprint, which is maybe similar to Christ also. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sorry. You're muted, Trevor. We cannot hear you.
oh, am I?
Now we can. Now we can.
Yeah, no, sorry, you can keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was saying that I was last week talking to Brian Forrester. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking. Sean was in the other. He was putting another image of the
chat.
and I was seeing you moving your mouth, but it's in the replay. So I thought that you were speaking. Okay. So, and I was talking to Brian Forrester about, the Baraka skulls and the elongated skulls. Not only there, also in Egypt. He also has a very remarkable research. He has been talking to YssaH I1. He also knew at some point Hakim I1, and it's like there has been no like skeleton evidence of the elongated skulls that we know, at least not disclosed. But we do have the statues, which are quite evident, of the daughters of AKHETATEN, that elongated skull. If you see all the headdresses that they use, you can say, yeah, it was just part of the fashion, like, and like in France, for the Louis.
Yeah.
That they have all these huge wigs.
Hairstyle.
Yeah, no, this is different. They didn't want to look taller. At least they were, like covering their elongated skull. And even, and we could go even the different kind of headdresses, what they represent. But I did share this with you, Trevor. A friend of mine, of us, sent to me an image of some artifacts that have been found here in Mexico that are made of jade, and the tribes that have found them, they want to be very, very cautious about it. They don't want to share it yet, but they have the same headdress that Nefertiti used. And even nowadays, here in Mexico, there is also a celebration, a holiday that recently happened, and there are these like these guises that people use, the chinelos, and they are representing the Spanish, but they have the headdress as the one that Nefertiti used, the same, So why I'm bringing this up is that the elongated skulls were all over the world, and what we know as something merely Egyptian or merely Peruvian or merely Mexican or Mesoamerican, it's not. It was all connected. And I do feel that AKHETATEN, one of its main purposes through the unity consciousness, was precisely bringing the benefits of that. For instance, he never condemned the figures of Isis or Osiris or Horus at all. He just took the power from the priests that were actually benefiting selfishly from the people, because they were making it a religion as an institution as it is nowadays. He was just bringing in the clarity that there was no worshiping. There was no need for worshiping another force as an external force. And those foundations um, of consciousness, you can see it in the galactic beings, because the separation becomes what actually happens in the moment that the humans believe that they are not cosmic, and that the galactic community is something aside of them, and then they portray them as gods. So I do believe that Akhenaten was like the last member of the galactic community, along with Nefertiti, and then he was truly through the teachings that he went through of the Senians and the mystery schools. He was truly trying to bring back that again into Egypt, into ancient Kemet, to restore it. And even technology, like we were talking about Serabit el Hadim in Sinai, and I do believe that actually the story that is said about him and Moses, that them being the same person. For me, I don't know, what do you think about that? I would love to know what you think about that. But for me, it's like, again, like trying to make all the heroes into one direction, and actually you have the figures, the statues of Akhenaten very clear, his physiognomy, so Akhenaten was one person. And I do believe that he embraced the 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 Hebrews at some point, because his father did, was with him, working with them. So he tried to put them at another level, at an equal level. And yeah, I can go forward, but before going into that, because there have been findings in Amarna, very interesting findings. So before going there, I would love to know what you think about that. Like,
Well, maybe first of all, I would address the first things you were talking about with the elongated skulls and whatnot, which I think there have been a lot of elongated skulls probably discovered in Egypt, but they're in Peru, they actually let people study them and talk about them. In Egypt, it's all they get swept away. That's the kind of stuff that just disappears. And it's important to say that Nefertiti and Akhenaten have never been discovered. They've never found the tombs. We don't have their skulls to analyze. Tutankhamun, whose real name was Tutankhaten, I think we all understand, because this has to do with the Amun priest, were the ones falling into this darkness and corruption. So that's what he was correcting when he came in. And by the end of his life, they killed him and took back over power again. So that was part of the legacy. But Tutankhamun may have actually had an elongated skull himself. Somewhat, a little bit, like not super, but yeah. You see them in the reliefs too. Sorry, and in the statues as well. So, yeah, there's a lot of that. And I think there probably have been skulls found there that just haven't been seen. But yeah, I don't know. There's more I could say on that, but I'd like to see what Alessandra thinks about that.
The elongated skulls?
Well, all of what was just said.
All of the above. Well, and this is just me. I don't like, if you look at the skull of Tutankhaten and others, or Jehuti Ankhaten, and others of the family, you don't really see what you would call elongated skulls. And I believe that Akhenaten actually was like not so tall in real life. I really believe that he was trying to show to the future what Sean was talking about, the off-planet history. I'm like serious, of the beings who came before that added their DNA. So I don't believe that he was that tall and had you know,
Yeah.
the hips that he had. And I believe he was just showing to people, like, for those who have eyes to see, this is our history. This is where we came from, whether it's Sirius or Sirius and Orion, you know, combination of the two. This is the history.
Yeah, I think there's something with understanding that, ETs interacting on Earth, it's people need to open up more to the concept that a soul is a soul and a soul can incarnate as a human being, things like that. So it's not cut and dry like, okay, he was an alien and he landed on the planet and told the world whatever. But he was a soul that was very special and it seemed he was coming to tell something specific.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, a lot of souls come from different places. There's stargates to bring souls that connect to specific stars, like the Great Pyramids connect to the Orion constellation, and then there's Egypt is a big star map. There's ones for Cygnus, ones for Sirius, all that. So it's a big like Waygate airport for souls to incarnate into bodies. So it's really nice. But also going into like people that have decrypted ancient civilizations like Sumeria with Anton Parks, going into describing a lot of their gods being like the Anunnaki, having like some type of it's like some super hybrid race of the majority of like clusters of hybrid races from like a marriage of royal families from Sirius B and an Orion empire combining together and then introducing their genetics to us. Species that already exist here. Some other interesting avenues and rabbit holes. Yeah, and the different long skulls that exist around the planet and some that still exist. Homo capensis is one of the long skull kind of type of humanoids that has a lot of the elite or some of the royal families have more of their genetics. Yeah, there's some weird history to cover, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, Brian's been doing some great work on it. When I first went to Peru, I was one day too late. I missed him at the Paracas Museum. He had just left, but I got to see all the skulls he was working on there. And yeah, we could say right off the bat, a lot of people think this is all skull binding. No, that's not the case. There's
No.
very clear differences. Much like crop circles, it's very easy to tell the real ones from the fakes, and there certainly are fakes, of course. Or there's emulating the gods by doing skull binding, but that's clearly
Yeah.
not the original. They were emulating the look of this other race that was among them. And yeah, the big giveaway is usually the cranial sutures. Some of the real ones don't have either of the two cranial sutures. Some of them have one big dome plate, and it's like, this was weird seeing this,
Yeah.
Definitely not just binding the skull, and you can't increase the brain capacity that way either. So
Exactly. Exactly. For instance, you were talking about I like to refer to him as Tutankhaten, or Tutankhaton, because that was his original name. I do respect that he chose Tutankhamon, but yeah. But anyway, his
yeah.
skull.
I don't think he
He,
chose. Sorry.
no, yeah, I agree. And
I might just say explain that a little bit is that after Akhenaten was killed, yeah, the Amun priests basically took over, but Tutankhamun, he was a child, and he let them put that Amun title back on his name because he didn't have a
yeah,
choice, really. He was a young boy. But in truth, I believe he was loyal to his father in the Aten religion, which is why he really would have preferred to have kept his original name. And we do still see it in his tomb on his throne.
yeah,
It's in Katen.
yes. And speaking of which, which is very interesting, Nefertiti is also shown with headdresses of Ammon, not because they are from Ammon, but because those headdresses are related to the host of Amenti, because they are codes embedded within the halls of Amenti as very specific key points of deeper information of what the halls of Amenti is. You can see that headdress in the stela, in the most famous one that they take a lot of people to, which are like the two fountains or two feathers, and it's the headdress that Amon used, well, the one that he mostly used. But Amon took that name from the halls of Amenti, as I remember, as I have, like tuned into very specific information. So for me, she was also trying to purify, to remove attachments from the original record that then was used to access to that power for very specific purposes, and that on one thing. And on the other aspect, for instance, when we talk about the openness of AKHETATEN to other Neteru, or well, to Neteru themselves, he even had I call that his lab. I will explain why. In Serabit el Hadim, it also has a temple for Hathor, and so he was truly into the Neteru, but in a different way. They also found a temple for Isis in Amarna, like just like one fragment, I think, like just a small piece, but it was there. And why I refer to that as his lab in Serabit el Hadim is this place that if we see in lines in the map, Amarna is, we would say, like at the same level of Serabit el Hadim in Sinai and around, so, and so it would be very much likely that he could have been traveling from one point to another. Even there is water, in between those two portions of land. And there was found a very specific powder, white powder there in flagstones, which is the MFKZT or Mufkust. And they, like, the translation of this is volatile and powerful. So
like similar to the Ormus or Mana or the monoatomic gold.
Yeah. The starfire, Shamana.
I've got something pretty interesting about that, actually. That was yeah, it's like I'm hesitant to bring out any screen sharing or even get into that because there's enough to just talk about. But I have this video, actually, it's a short video of what's called Tibur. Have you ever heard of that? Tibr. It's called Tibur. Tibur. I can't pronounce it. This was when I was there a few months ago.
No.
It's got a couple names, but my friend I was staying with, he told me that he had just been informed about this tomb that had been discovered by people he knew, and they found tons of this stuff in there. They gave him a little bit to show me, but it's like these tiny little, it's not white, but it's like tiny, super fine, round beads of gold, supposedly. But it's in such small particles, it's like, I don't know, I could try and show you the video of it quick, if I can screen share, but
yeah, if it's ready for you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let me see. So it's like, I don't know, they could have used it to like oh, let me just do a portion of the screen. Melt it down to make small statues or something like that. Sorry, I'm trying to click on it. Here we go. Oh, okay. This is some of it. It's like these very, very fine. That's my finger. That's how fine it is. But they're like transparent.
Yeah, exactly.
So, we found some of this. They gave him a sample of it, and he showed it to me, and yeah, he actually gave me that little bit of it. I have it with me still. It was a sample basically, because some of these people were trying to sell it, and I was like, oh, I don't know,
And
but I would love to have a sample of that to actually look at it. And my friend was asking if I could get it tested, see what actually it is made of. But this was found in all these jars in like a royal tomb in Amarna in Minya, like right, I don't know exactly, but in this area of Amarna, the greater area. So yeah, that's something I'm looking into, but I've definitely looked into the white gold, the powdered monoatomic gold was so central to all of this, and especially to like the Anunnaki and preserving life. You know, it had powers to be ingested and extend life if you knew what you were doing with it, if it was in the right dosage and stuff. But
Yeah, are you guys in the habit of taste testing random things you find in temples? I have yeah, I do that sometimes.
I remember the Ceramic Hadim, I found some of that dolls, and I was trying to see if it was that, because they said that they recently found,
Yeah,
like a couple of years ago, they still found of that powder.
Spiritually, I'm getting off it that it can do something to your DNA, but yeah, be cautious. Do your thing.
a lot of people do that. A lot of people go up and they touch the temples and just lick it and eat it. And they think it will give them some kind of power, give them the energy of that temple.
Eat responsibly.
Sure, yeah.
Mummy dust. Eat
your temples responsibly. Some people think it's actually what's causing some of the weathering on the sides of the temples, or some of those whatever they call the marks that look like they're, someone just stuck their finger in and ran it through, that you see on some of those temples. But I don't think that's what caused that. But
Yeah.
some people do that. But consuming the actual ormus, like the white gold, and you will see this all over, and it is also associated with the ark, like you're talking about. And by the way, is also associated, I believe, with the Essenes may have been the ones moving that to where it ended up going, very likely in my mind, taking it to Ethiopia, perhaps in that ancient time, where I think it may have stayed at least until Graham Hancock wrote his book about it, possibly. But I think they would have had to have moved it at that point, and it might even be back in Egypt now. I've got some ideas about, but I think there are also multiple different arcs, and there's certainly, like, it seems to have been a power source of some type that would have been used with the Great Pyramid potentially.
Yeah.
That seemed like it would fit right into the box there, or one of them may have, So yeah, I don't know. People say the Ark might have had this white powder in it. Some people say that powder was found in some of the Serapeum boxes as well. That it had something to do with levitation also.
Yeah, I can confirm that. I made it myself. You put in the freezer, in like the liquid form, the icicles move upward, and also if you change it in different temperatures, it can disappear entirely and then phase back. And the same thing with the alchemical process. And there's like it levitating and passing through metal. So that stuff is crazy.
Yeah,
It's at a high rate of speed.
I've heard it associated with the term Vimana, from India, a levitating craft, and that the Sumerians also used the word Shimana to describe the same things. They've got mana in it. And of course, yeah, it's like in the Exodus, they're talking about mana from heaven, something that was sustaining them. But it is, I think, derived from an alchemical process, which is very, very complex to get it to its full potency and to be something where you could actually consume it and potentially live indefinitely in a single body, pretty much like
different M states. There's way more states of gold than people realize. The green gold, the red dragon, the red line. There's more than the pure octable, and then what it reacts to. And when you charge it with plasma, there's people have tried making free energy devices out of it. And if you charge it up, it does things like what you're talking about with levitation. So it can. The same thing with red mercury too. Like there's some crazy stuff going on with different elements when you add different compounds outside of the pure octables. just, what goes more into the world of alchemy instead of just chemistry.
Yes. Now that you were talking about this, you said it's like before Akhenaten became pharaoh, all the power of the arcs, because we also see like different kind of um, let's say powerhouses, shrines that were collocated into shrines, and that we see in the hieroglyphs like the Neteru in there, and then all these plasma fields depicted, and then like being carried from one place to another, or just we have like the powerhouse, and we also see this in Sumerian tablets, and now, but it was just focused on the very specific beings. And now, when Akhenaten came, he was, hey, take, it's for you, it's for all of you. Like the power source, the source of life is for all of you. And I do believe that he was doing and accomplishing a very interesting, and remember that he was accomplishing a very good um, outcome by placing the art and other artifacts in a very contained space, because even in the steles you see that they cannot go beyond those limits. It's for a very specific perimeter, through a very specific perimeter. So he was containing the energy and also protecting, because at some point I do feel that he knew what was coming. He tried to prevent it by reaching out to unity consciousness, because he was never a warrior in a figure speaking of, like quarreling or war or fighting. He just was not in resonance or in resonance with, but he was not looking for trouble with anyone. So
Yeah.
so then he created this space of where everyone could access to that mana, to that plunk plasma. And there are registers. I don't know if you have heard about this, guys, but that they found, because every time that I ask to Egyptologists whether they are dear friends to me or not, mostly because we are talking through WhatsApp. So, and they're in Egypt, they even check the WhatsApp. So they need to be very careful with that. But when I ask in person, that was different. But now if I ask them, hey, have you ever found bodies in Amarna, like corpses, like, mummies or whatever? And, like no response. And but I did read an article or something that said that a group of bodies of teenagers or young adults of 20, about around 21 years old, were found with arthritis, all piled together. And of course, they were doing assumptions that they were abused, that they were, like Akhenaten took them to the extreme to build fast the city, because it was fastly built. But it was built fastly because he had the tools, he had the technology, mostly. And about these kids and the soil in Amarna, and I also talked about this to Brian. I do believe that something happened, technologically speaking, that boom, beyond the fact that perhaps also the priestess of Amon later on destroyed Amarna, but there was also something technologically speaking that passed,
That's a good point. Do you think there, and this is for you guys, do you think, because like the different family lineage is, if I remember correctly, it seems like he has a different family lineage than the previous pharaohs coming in, and that he might have had inheritance with that, and there might have been a group involved with bringing him in, and then also having technology with that, like what you're saying. What do you think?
Well, what I do know is that he looks very much like his mother, T, the Queen T, and like his face is very similar to the
Yeah.
these features to of her mom's
You could
of
say
his
at
father.
least that it was very clear they wanted to wipe him from history after his time. You know, when the it's like you could imagine today if someone comes in and just upsets the entire, political or religious values of the day and says, okay, no, this priesthood is corrupt. They're all doing selfish, like black magic is coming into it. The Amun priesthood was on the decline. They were not going in the right direction. And he comes in and says no to all of that. Let's restore some truth and bring it back to this connection directly to the source of nature and connection. Of course, they're not going to like that. And they didn't like that he was a man of peace either, that he wasn't interested in military campaigns to go conquer other countries. And so, yeah, they didn't really like that. And that was one of the reasons they needed to get him out. And when they finally just killed him, yeah, like I say, there wasn't too much that Nefertiti or Tutankhaten could have done as, a child. And she was kind of I think Nefertiti and Tutankhamen and possibly the supposed daughter of Akhenaten,
Something.
Skota,
Scotia.
supposedly went up to Scotland, and that's
That's
supposedly where the name Scotland came from. And I know
Nova Scotia. Yeah.
a new friend Luke Eastwood just wrote a book about that, who I just started talking with him about it a bit. But actually, I have this is another book that I've brought up to everyone when talking about Akhenaten, because The Secret Places of the Lion, this is from 1958, but it's talking about basically a storehouse of records, ancient records in Peru that are accessible today, or supposedly were the source of this book and its material. And basically discuss the entire firsthand account of Amarna, suggesting that Nefertiti actually left Egypt and went all the way to Peru, actually. That's at least what they're saying in this book, and that there's tablets written in her own hand in native Peruvian clay. So you could prove that Nefertiti actually wrote it in Peru. Um, so it
It makes
suggests
sense with
they're
the
going to be
hats.
discovered in the future. Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this up because it makes sense with the hats, with the headdresses that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Because interestingly enough, they show not only one being with that kind of hat, they show two female figures, which means that yeah, we could also
Well,
connect it to other things coming through.
this it does tie in as well to what you were saying before about I think even Tutankhaten, he like we're saying, his name was on his throne in his tomb, Tutankhaten, with his original Aten on it, and that throne also has these lions on it, and there's all these symbols pointing to the lion, which is what this book is all about. The cats being a symbol of these underground repositories of knowledge all over the world, being a universal type of symbolism. But it suggests that Tut kind of played along with the Amun priests, but in secret, he was actually storing the true story of his father's religion in the Hall of Records under the Sphinx. So he might have been updating the records there with the Amarna story. So,
With
yeah.
also what you brought up, like I've heard multiple like esoteric historians go into the fleeing of Nefertiti and Scotia, and going into Ireland, Scotland, Nova Scotia, and the
Yeah.
inhabitants, and also continuing a lineage there and having burials there, and they seem their connection to Scythians and the connection of kings there, and there seemed to be a lineage, and that there is a bigger infrastructure of their families and the royals with their fleeing and their choice of where they're going. So, in DNA connection of them knowing that location or something in the lineage that migrated, that appears to be returning to something that they once inhabited, and same thing possibly with Peru. So that's opening some really fascinating doors.
Yeah, definitely
So
seen.
can I just say something? Sorry,
Yeah.
Trevor. Speaking about the DNA, Sean, when they did the DNA, which you might recall, of Jehuti Ankatan, because that was his name, the Tut is Toth.
Mhm.
So vibrationally, his name actually was Jehuti Ankatan.
Yeah, those
Cool.
But the
AKHETATEN.
Yeah, maybe a lineage of them.
DNA, when they did
A lot
it,
of
was, I think from memory, R1A B2 or something like that, which is, it originates from Scythia.
Ah,
And it was the Scythians who traveled westward, and it was the Scythians who had coats of many colors and were great horsemen and great charioteers. So if you look at YssaH, who was the grandfather of Akhenaten and the father of Tai, he was an Israelite, Joseph. So he wore his coat of many colors because his lineage, as expressed in the DNA of Jehuti Ankatan, was of that lineage that originated in Scythia,
yeah,
and
I
which
heard-
many Western Europeans, like Italy, France, Spain, Britain, Scotland, have today.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I
speaking of
heard that
Jehuti,
too.
like,
Sorry, there's a delay. Can you continue?
there was the number of Jehutis within the 18th dynasty. When you're talking about Akhenaten teaching unity consciousness and living unity consciousness, it was Jehutimos, or Thothmoses the third, who restored, and he was, I think, the great grandfather of Akhenaten. He was the one who restored the mystery schools of Thoth, Jehuti. So then that passed down, and Akhenaten carried on those teachings. And then that carried on downwards towards the time of Christ Yeshua and his family. And that reminds me, Trevor, you've read Anna, yes? In
Grandmother of Jesus.
Anna, the grandmother of Jesus,
Yeah,
yes, grandmother Anna said that Christ Yeshua, and of course some of the family as well, but she mentioned Christ Yeshua, Jesus, was a lineal descendant of Akhenaten.
Yeah.
And that when he was born, one of the three wise men presented baby Jesus, Yeshua, with the Menat Hathor necklace that had belonged to Queen Tai. They presented that with him, like his great ancestral grandmother. And also that Mother Mary was incarnated back then as Queen Tai.
That makes sense because there's so many parallels between them, and I saw it between Nefertiti and Mary Magdalene. So many parallels as well. Before I had heard anything about there being a direct genetic connection between them, but I have heard that from more than just you. I mean, yeah, she was like Mary Magdalene was the really the primary disciple of Yeshua. He said, you know, she kind of had his message down more than any of the other disciples, apostles, and he kind of really entrusted her to carry on his teachings and put that stuff forward, which we read about in the Gnostic Gospels, and the Nag Hammadi library, and Qumran Dead Sea Scrolls and things. Which of course that's not still in the Bible, but those books that were taken out, they describe that relationship between Jesus, Yeshua, and Mary Magdalene seems so similar. She was the one who continued on his teachings, just like Nefertiti continued along with Jehuti Ankatan to preserve the true story of his father, and so did Nefertiti as well. In this book, actually, it says that she didn't just go to Peru, but that she also went to Tibet and stored the story of Akhenaten in Tibet as well. I realize those are some bold claims for people who are still in this mindset that they couldn't have traveled over the oceans or long distances, but why not? I mean, we do have
The
yeah,
tunnel
like
systems.
yeah, flying machines being described in the Vedas. We've got this book is basically saying that these are extraterrestrial knowledge repositories, that it is the histories of more than just our world that are in these record chambers. And that does tie straight to the Sphinx and to the ones in other parts of the world, which Peru and Tibet are obviously two major centers of that, where the original Earth history was stored. So I think they're all connected, and they're going to tell us, you can imagine if we come across records in Peru and Tibet and Egypt that all tell us the same story, well, that's going to help humanity to put it together that maybe this was the real story, especially
Yeah.
we'll access the Akashic records and more people are able to look back as Edgar Casey had done. We'll also get confirmations directly of some of this, which is, like I said, I can't say that this material is true. He's just telling us, yeah, there's this secret brotherhood of adepts, of this family of souls that are present in Peru right now, today, still, who are looking to the Akashic records, looking at the soul imprints and the reincarnations of the different people. They're talking about the guy who carved the bust of Nefertiti, for example, and that's it right there. That's the Nefertiti bust. So
Yes.
people. Um,
Yes.
he said the guy who carved that statue was the same one who carved the. I'm not sure about this. I think he said it was the same one who did the mask of Tutankhamun, which is alchemical gold. It's the purest gold on the planet, that mask, and the chair as well. There are similarities to like Solomon's temple, the type of gold that was there in Jerusalem. Um,
Mhm.
but one of the things in that book, they claim that the artisan who trained the sculptor who made the mask, at least, was actually later incarnate as Leonardo da Vinci. Very interesting. So they're watching like who was whose reincarnation, and it's interesting, It,
Now that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
that's all.
Now that you're saying that is, for instance, um, when you talk about all of this part of, well, there were many things, but anyway, uh, about that part that Akhenaten has been related to be the one, like him and Moses being the same person. It's like because they say that Moses, like stood Moses, and like how could like the story of the baby in the river be true and so forth. So for me, like not to get into any specific stories unless anyone wants to, but for me, they were different beings. They were connected
Yeah,
indeed, but not because they were one. They were
Mm.
very close to one another. For Ahenaten, he was a brother, but then, like Moses fled, took a lot of the information of the mysteries school with him. And when you see in the stelas the images of Ahenaten holding the two tablets, that they really, and they say that it says the word of God, and that's why he's also Moshe and so forth. For me, it's what you were saying, Trevor. It's like replicating the story and then using it, to make it so strong in another, coming from another source. Like taking the story and then putting it in another source. And I even, when I was there, received some one of the information that I received, which is like a very, yeah, it took me a while to speak about this publicly, but at some point, because you spoke about reincarnation, that the Nazis knew so much about the Egyptians, you know, like very specific uh, powerful information, is because some of the priests of Amun, you know, at some point reincarnated later on as in that period of time, you know, and that's why they had access to the underground cities. They had access to all that technology. They knew, and they had all this conflict with the youth, you know, because it was carried from like from that moment on, you know. So anyway, there is a lot of information that I do believe that when it comes, the moment that it comes clear into the collective, it will create a big difference in the consciousness, you know.
Yeah.
It will, because only through truth is that we can access to unified consciousness, to a unity consciousness. And yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think it's like I say, if we're uncovering record halls all over the world and they're all telling us about the history, the same history basically, that could really change things. And it's very clear that, yeah, like I say, there's certainly ties between, I mean, we wouldn't have had the progression of monotheistic religions in the world today that we have seen if it had not been for this foundation Akhenaten kind of set up. I know Ahmed Osman, he wrote a book that's called Akhenaten and Moses, and he's basically putting forward the idea they were the same person. But I tend to agree more with you that they were related. I don't think they were the same person. I don't know, maybe, but I don't think so. I think they were tied together, and I know heard a couple translations for what Moses actually means, but I think the main one I've heard, um, what is it?
Son of.
No.
Yeah, that's the one I had heard. It means son of, is the usual one, which means doesn't make any sense as a name if your name is just son of. No, it makes sense if it's Ramesses, like son of Ra, or Thothmes, son of Thoth, Thoth. So it makes sense if it has a prefix, but it doesn't make sense as a suffix without a prefix. It just means son of. So the great prophet who founded, Judaism, is just named son of. That doesn't make sense from an Egyptian perspective. And some people think that it had a prefix that got cut off of it. And they're not telling you who he is the son of. He could have been a Thothmes, a son of Toth or Jehuti, like Alessandra says, going back even further, that's the root of the name. But there is clearly an association with Akhenaten and his teachings that does go back to Thoth, to Jehuti, to this going back to the first time when we're talking about thousands of years before the first dynasties. There is a lineage, there's a passed on knowledge from back then, which all the mystery schools were built on. And, the Amun priests had a lot of that in the books and things, but they were falling away from it. And so I think that, it's kind of like when Akhenaten came in, he was restoring the link back to the traditional truth of the mystery school teachings laid out by this Thoth Jehuti, the original, the gods that ruled Egypt in the first time, and the Shemsu Hor, and this tradition of actually preserving this most ancient knowledge that does even way back then, thousands of years ago, back to Atlantis and the first immigrants coming in, if you want to call it that, But yeah, I'm actually releasing a film this Sunday that's very deep about the Temple of Horus. And Horus was, he was this king for these 7,000 years, as it says on the walls of the Temple of Horus, which on Sunday I'm going to get into this with an interview with Monty Safes today. That is amazing. He's bringing the first English translations of the temple wall inscriptions at Edfu, which is the Egyptians' own original origin story, telling it themselves. And he's bringing us the first reliable English translation. But it ties into that, to Zep Tepi, the first time, and yeah, the reign of Horus. It says, just like Plato's Atlantis, this goes back 7,000 years and longer, matching up with the timeline and even finding the roots of the word Atlantis written at the
Yes.
temple.
Yes.
So,
Exciting.
Yeah. Um, and then, yeah, I don't know. Um, there's some things I learned in Amarna in this past trip that were I can't really talk about them so much. There's a couple locations. It's like I can mention carefully. There's some locations where there are some things that are very, very important, and I can't give away the locations or it could jeopardize them, you know. But I can say I visited three sites that, oh my God, I wish I could speak about them. I wish I could tell you what I saw or the footage I got, but we've got to be really careful. We're going to try and get some money and some um, funding to do actual digs there. And as soon as we can ensure that these sites can be protected, we can talk about them and show them. But um, yeah, there's three different sites that I got taken out to there. Some of them we had to hike quite a ways to get into the desert out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Extraordinary things. That some of the people who discovered these things, and one of them, there's only 20 people on Earth who have seen it so far or less when I saw it. And it was just discovered maybe a year ago at this point, not even a year ago.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. I was looking through my Amarna folder last night, just getting kind of thinking about this subject, and oh man, I just watched some of this footage. But the people who discovered these things, I'll say there's three locations in specific that are very exciting. They think these could be the tomb of Nefertiti or the tomb of Akhenaten potentially, or very important ceremonial spots. There's a few things. I think we might have found a Sphinx in Minya. Um, but it's yeah, I'm trying to be really careful about that, but I will just put it out that in the future, hopefully I'm going to be able to share some super exciting stuff about
Yes.
this. And yeah, I went to the Tuna Gebel. Have you been there?
Yes.
Oh my
Tuna
God.
Gebel.
If we want to talk about potential ET technology or a very advanced technology, something that probably would have been pretty easy if you had like, UFO level of technology, but would be very difficult if you didn't. I mean, this is an underground city that part of it is open to the public. I got to go a lot deeper than just what the public area was and get into some of the deeper tunnels, but they call it a city of the dead, and it's an unbelievable sight. I mean, people go wild over the Serapeum, which they should. It's a car because of what's inside there. But if you think about how big that structure is underground, Tuna Gebel just dwarfs it. There are, they said, over 1,000 tunnels down there, and these are huge, 10 or 12 feet wide, each one of them.
Hmm.
And, it gets me thinking what happened to all the material they removed to create all these spaces underground, because I was looking above ground for a pile of debris they would have had to pull up and move, and it's just not there. It's like they dematerialized the stone to make there would have been a giant mountain on top above ground if they had removed all that somehow and pulled it out bucket by bucket. It seems nearly impossible. But when you get into the manipulation of matter and density and this high physics that the mystery schools did have, I believe, it starts to be like, well, there was something else going on there.
Yeah.
I jump ahead and
Mm.
say DTs, but a lot of things definitely start to make you wonder if it was something larger like that. But
You reminded me of I don't know if you have heard or been at Saint Rosette the first in his tomb, which is in Mount Abydos. Mount Abydos is also a super important point, energetic point, and it's connected to the mountain in front of the Dendera temple in Alcurna, underground. I had also the opportunity to be under the shafts of the one that they call the Cleopatra's swimming pool.
mm,
There are some shafts under there, and they connect all the way to the mountain in front, and that mountain connects to the mountain Abydos. And yeah, it's a huge and massive network of shafts. And this is what also Brian was saying, you know, that all that level of technology, a lot of the places were they knew that they were there, and then they would do very specific adequations, as you know, like using them as shrines or temples or tombs, or you know, like depending the case, you know. But yeah, it's impressive. It's really, 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 really impressive. And how the human mind functions, that if you see something very ancient and underground, you're related to do something, like to put tombs there, you know, like even the cemetery in the Giza Plateau, it's over something, also above something really important that hasn't been discovered yet, you know.
Like
But
Jebel Ghibli, you mean?
I'm sorry, what?
You mean by like Jebel Ghibli, the Muslim cemetery there?
Yeah, the one that is just in front there. Yeah, yeah.
There's
Inside the
paths
Giza
going
Plateau.
down. Uh,
Yeah,
that is on top of some stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
With our, you know, our friends in Italy here, I'm really excited. The things they can start getting into after we finish up Giza. You know, there's so much I want them to look at, but I do believe there's a tunnel system that's going straight from Giza, you know, through all these pyramid sites, Dashur, Saqqara, Zayat area,
yeah.
and then straight down to Fayum and Hawara, then to Minya, and then straight down all the way to Luxor and Aswan. The same tunnel network probably goes from Alexandria all the way to Sudan. I really believe that. And it connects all the temples along the way. But I actually did a interview with one of my friends in Minya when I was there that I did finally get up on my YouTube channel. That's called the Underground Egypt's Underground Cities and Long Range Tunnel System. And he went to Minya University. He was a trained, you know, for history and archaeology, and he's been looking into this question with great passion himself. He's a young archaeologist just going at it, and he shared such great information. And he said, you know, Tuna Gebel is just one of the underground cities. In Minya alone, if you go across the Nile, you have Beni Hassan on the other side, which is another huge network of these underground
Yeah.
tunnels. And he told me straight up, there's a tunnel going underneath the Nile from one to the other. They connect under the Nile, as well as connecting all the way to the north and all the way to the south.
Mm.
So, yeah. And then when we start talking about what's under the Valley of the Kings, could you imagine if the Khafra Project looked at the Theban hills there on the West Bank? What's, you know, there's so many things I want to tell them to point the satellites at, but they've got a lot of work to do in Egypt still. So.
Yeah, there is a lot. And also here in Mexico, a lot is coming out, you know, a lot on like on the surface and underground.
So where are you at in Mexico? I wanted to ask. Or,
And the state of Mexico.
And near Mexico City, so in the center.
okay, yeah,
There's
cool.
tunnel systems under everywhere, and even the military have a bunch of tunnel system that works. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to connect to, and there's
Yeah.
inter groups. I wanted to ask you guys a question that I keep tuning into with various clients that I have, and tracking things back in wounds, their DNA, the ego, the blocks, limitations. There seems to be a big invasion in the various big wounding events that I'm trying to, as we gain more knowledge about and understanding them, we can heal as a collective so that it's less limiting on our species. There's a big wound at the time of Akhenaten, Moses period, having to do with, I believe, what you're talking about with the dark priest class that doesn't like what he's doing. And for some reason, there's like a big betrayal and opening up of allowing of like dark gods like Set and Apophis to open up this big connection between taking over clusters in Orion and allow a big invasion. And there's I keep seeing these hell realms of previously nice realms taken over. There's a big war in Orion. There's like things invading some of the planets, and then the hell the when the spirits take over a realm, they make it hellish, and then they have it. It's like a chain of different realms that were taken over, including heavenly realms, which have a bunch of power, and then they use that to have overpowered authority to invade more realms, and then they have them bilocate to other places like our realm of our planet, and then connect and invade. And they seem to need some authority on this end to open that. And there was some big betrayal, and there was a huge invasion, and a whole bunch of spirits targeted and attacked people. And I keep reading with my clients, and stole a bunch of their abilities and soul parts and all this other stuff. There's also some big, lesser, not that was the bigger invasion besides Fall of Atlantis. That was the biggest. And then there was a pyramid grid taking over point that that seemed to be a lot from the Egyptian god Set, and uh, there was a fracturing of this being to make them Horcrux throughout the desert in different buried cities that Set may have ruled in the past or something, to where he's anchoring parts of himself, like Horcrux in Harry Potter puts parts of his soul in there to make himself resilient. Just wondering if you have anything on that, because not many people I know have anything on that. So, but that's what I keep tuning into in evidence.
Well, I could say this on it. I mean, in any age, you have the mystery schools are like it's like a door into other dimensions. You know, what you're talking about kind of reminds me today of what's going on at CERN. You know, the Hadron Collider, the things they're doing there. The mystery schools are like a doorway, which, you know, ultimately you can take to these lower frequency dimensions or to higher. And if you want to call it like, it's like learning how to call in angels or demons, if you want to call it that. But it might be, you know, benevolent or malevolent ETs as well. I think those have crossed over. There's been confusion in some, you know, maybe they are different things we're talking about, but they've crossed over with each other. But the idea of the mystery schools is really to form a filter, you know, that is something that someone has to move through in order to prove that they were of these high moral and ethical standards before they get trusted with this high wisdom, because it's known, even the Kabbalah, even, you know, the mystery schools today, even Rosicrucians and Freemasons and the what we have left of them, which are mostly all completely corrupted at the top by in today's world. Basically, they do have these teachings, and like if you look at Solomon's keys, you know, even though a lot of people today can't really wrap their heads around this or understand that there is something real to it, these are symbols and vibrations and specific frequencies that call out to specific entities or other dimensional beings at times. And it's like, this is why you have to protect the knowledge of this grand arcanum, or the highest knowledge of the mystery schools. You can't let it fall into the hands of people who have not proven that they are responsible with it, or that they are in service to the world rather than themselves. And when you get the selfish people getting their hands on those keys, yeah, they can just call out to the demons, if you want to call it that. But these other entities that aren't part of our closed system on this planet, they can't come in and interact with humanity unless they're invited. And so basically is the way they're invoked, these invocations, you're calling them in. So this might be out there to a lot of people, but not to your audience, I don't think. That you know, that it's actually like, who are they going to call? If you're giving this knowledge and information to, you know, billionaire class, like evil, I don't know, George Bush, or these families, or these political dynasties that are tied back into these same ancient bloodlines we know, a lot of them who are not good people are going to call in really dark energies and entities. to be, you know, and they're going to be the way that the groups like that can find an entrance into affecting the human world. So it's like how many humans who are understanding of the occult science and the secret, you know, other realm are going to choose to call that to angels versus to demons, because you know, benevolence versus malevolence, we could say. Um, it's like they can gain all this wealth and power and influence and really screw up their own soul, you know, if in the afterlife, if they're making deals with very entities like this, it's like they're giving up everything to uh, sell out the world to very dark agendas. And you know, they think, oh, I can control this entity because I have the Solomonic key to his name. It's like, most of the time it's not going to work out like that. It's going to destroy your life. It's going to destroy the world. But when you have people that don't care about that, and this is probably what was happening with these, you know, priests of Ammon, they had fallen into some, there's black magic going on, which is very selfish uses of this highly, very powerful knowledge that you could use for good or bad, you know?
Have you guys seen even in the Temple of Medinet Habu, the lake that is reddish? Of course, it's like an alchemical, you know, reaction. No, you haven't seen it? We
I haven't seen a pool there, no.
there is a lake there. They call it the Sacred Lake. As you enter, it's on the left, on the right side, and
Like
it's
towards
red.
the back, or is it all the way towards the back on the right, or no?
All the way to the right, a little bit, you know, at the center, but all the way to the right, you know, at the bottom of the temple, the right bottom, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like greenish and reddish. At least when I went there, it was in those colors. So,
Okay.
and that
Huh.
Medinet Habu, I brought it up because it was there were a lot of it was a lot of the Ammon priests and priestess going on there. So,
I
Which,
missed something. Disappeared for a while.
he's talking about the lakes and the reddish,
it,
a few of it. Alessandra, do you have anything on the hijacking of the pyramid grid and the times of Akhenaten?
No, and I missed a whole lot of that because you all disappeared.
Well, for
You disappeared for us. No problem. It wasn't that
Oh,
much. It's just
okay.
going based. You heard my question though,
No, I
right?
don't. Hmm?
You heard my
Sorry.
question? Did you hear my question?
No, sorry.
All right, sorry, I'll repeat it. I wanted, because barely anyone knows this. I tune into it, and wounding in
Oh, the
people's
original
DNA.
question? No, I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I don't.
All right, like, do you know anything about like the taking over the pyramid grid, the Amman mystery schools, what they did in
No.
betrayal, the maybe corruption to gain power that they did, the arcs, the different arcs of the government leaving the places of power, and then there's this big curse that's emitting from some of the places on the people until they return it. There's this big like portal that opened that like had a bunch of invading spirits that stole parts from people, and there's like a big wounding event, and that goes back to like the core of the limitation on the area and big swaths of the pyramid grid, and I don't know. No, yeah, barely anyone knows. So feel
no,
free to go
No.
into whatever it reminds you of.
I don't have anything on that, Sean, except my own feeling when you're talking about betrayal, that there was a betrayal
yeah,
of some kind at Amarna.
yeah.
A
I
betrayal.
could speak to that a little
I don't
bit.
know what it was.
That there is, I mean, for people who don't know, that there is this energetic grid around the whole planet, which all these pyramids and different sacred temple sites are built on. It's the ley lines, and where the ley lines cross and converge, these are these very powerful places where it's the basically the energy of the entire living planet is emitted forth at these vortex points, if you want to call them, or convergence points on that grid. And so this is what we're talking about. You want to control those points if you want to control all life on the planet, all consciousness, all living energy. You want to be the gatekeeper of that energy, and you can filter it through different things. You know, if you put this beautiful temple with all this math and geometry blended into it, and these constructions like Angkor Wat, for example, where you've got miles of beautiful stone reliefs, and you do all this amazing art, and you run the Earth's energy through that filter of a great art piece, it's going to bring so much enlightenment automatically, and information and health and fertility, everything to all the land. If you put something else on one of those points, you're going to filter it through something else. So you look at the Vatican and the obelisk there. There's dark stuff goes on in the chambers underneath that obelisk. If you look at Washington, D.C., same thing. Yes, there is a moon priesthood, if you will, that is very much into this dark, selfish black magic. It's sorcery. That's what it is. If people don't believe in that, well, look back. There is something real to this. The Egyptians were onto something. They did understand the power of words and intentions and energies that could be placed in these things. And I'm actually going to be talking very much a lot deeper to that science of how that works very soon, actually, with Veda Austin. I don't know if you know of her. Um, she's doing amazing research on water and how water is like it's a interface between
The quantum interface. Yeah.
yes, hydrogen in it, and when you turn it into a liquid crystal, or when you structure it, you can basically turn it into something like quartz that can take in a specific energy and hold a specific energy or information. So it's a very magical, amazing thing, but we're looking into turning it into a science, which really is helped along a great deal by Dr. Marcel Vogel, who did all this research on the quartz crystals. And if you look at how that relates to these obelisks, which are all granite, the red Osman granite that has so much quartz in it, huge quartz content, that's what these obelisks are doing. If you look at Rome, if you look at France, New York,
Yes.
yeah, these obelisks, they can actually, it's a method where the energy is placed into these obelisks and pyramids, and then that is used to charge the water that comes running underneath it, and the water goes back into the river, and the river goes into the ocean. And this is a means by which you could put spells over the entire human race that end up in the water of the whole planet, that affect the energy of it. Or you could put blessings, you could put positive or negative. And so like Sean's talking about, an agenda to darken the grid. Yes, that's real. They've built some of their own ley lines over this grid to disharmonize it. They've done things. Hitler moved his armies along the ley lines to conquer the next point. They understood that stuff. They understood that they could control the entire area, the mentality and consciousness of all the people if they conquer these convergence points of that energy. So this is knowledge that obviously they wouldn't want to share with the world. They don't want everyone else to understand how important these specific locations are, or else they can't conquer them all as easily and hold that power over the whole world. If you go way back in ancient times, you're seeing these masterful works of art placed on those points. And that's what we do basically today. We need to collectively flip the grid back from this darkness it's been pulled towards for a long time, or parts of it at least, like you say. We can, through consciousness and conscious effort of understanding how this science works, actually reverse that back to what it was, which is that's the paradise Earth we're headed for. Is if we could do that, then we're good.
Nice key for that is evil doesn't earn authority; they steal it. So you can pull the rug out from underneath them by restoring the original authorities they stole it from. Or
that's right. The symbols, they steal the symbols that have all this positive energy.
Yes.
Like this last perfect example.
Exactly. And you both were talking about, like going back to the origin. Well, actually, the fourth state of matter that you were talking about, of matter of water, which you're talking about, this crystalline liquid, is also known as exclusion zone water, you know? So it is, and it is considered to have been the state of the water that was present in the first forms of nucleus in the molecular structure of the water when all life was formed. So it's going to the origin, you know, not trying to uh, abolish a model, yet creating one through the fundaments of the original ones. You know how I see it as well. And I wanted to, speaking of which, I wanted to read a fragment of one of the stelas of the boundaries stelas in AKHETATEN, and it is, well, that this is the translation. But if you think of the atom as that plasma force, as that primordial source of life, as that technological source of free energy, of 0 point energy, it fits perfectly. And even when it talks about the offerings, it would be nourishing it with life, with electrons, with, you know, like all this field. I'm not going to read it all. It's just um, one day, on this day, when one was in AKHETATEN, His Majesty appeared on the great chariot of Electrum. You know, so it's talking about a chariot of electricity. Setting off on a good road toward AKHETATEN, his place of creation, which he made for himself that he might set within it every day. Then he presented a great offering to the Father, the Aten, consisting of breath. We know that the white powder is also known as white breath. So now we know that not everything is literal, not even if they're talking about food. Beer, long and short horned cattle, well, among other components, in front of the mountain of AKHETATEN. The king addresses his gathered courtiers. As the Aten is beheld, the Aten desires that there be made for him as a monument with an eternal and everlasting name. Now it is the Aten, my father, who advised me concerning it, namely AKHETATEN. No official has ever advised me concerning it, not any of the people who are in the entire land has ever advised me concerning it. To suggest making AKHETATEN in this distant place, it was the Aten, my father, who advised me concerning it. So it's talking about this plasmic force that we know about the also the shining ones, so called, which there are these plasma beings that are very much in also all the mountains. I have seen them, and not I was with people that was with me, and the people saw them as well. We were in Sinai, and they came to us, these plasma beings coming from underground, you know, from the mountain, not underground, from the mountain.
Mhm.
And then it says, behold, it is Pharaoh who has discovered it, not being the property of a god, not being the property of a goddess, not being the property of a ruler, not being the property of a female ruler, not being the property of any people to lay claim to it. I shall make AKHETATEN for the Aten, my father, in this place, which can also, the word father can be, you know, like very taken into many connotations. I shall not make AKHETATEN for him to the south of it, to the north of it, to the west of it, to the east of it. I expand beyond the northern stela of AKHETATEN toward the north. Well, and so forth, it continues, but then it says, because it's talking about the different points in which he is creating precisely Amarna, to hold the space for the Aten. I shall make the house of the Aten for the Aten. You know, the house. So for someone who is not religious, knows that it cannot be limited to a very specific place, a force, that it is infinite. You know, it wouldn't be congruent, you know, it wouldn't be coherent. And I shall make the sun temple, the mansion of the Aten, my father in the island of the Aten. So he also talks about an island. And yeah, I could continue reading. There is a lot of the code on this. I have decoded a lot on this and other stelas. But what I mainly mean is that here, for me, it makes perfectly sense that he's talking about fundamental force of life, which can have a lot of technological usage and benefits, you know, for humanity and for his people. So, and creating a place for that shrine, and even in that stele, you see an arc. You see an arc.
I actually, maybe I could share a picture of.
Sure.
I have one image of myself for scale, at least, to see this. To see this, let's see. Okay, whoops. So yeah, can you see this? Whoops. It's not letting me adjust the size. Okay, yeah, this is one of this. Can you see this?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's huge. This is the one at Tuna Gebel, but I think there's 14 of these different boundary stelas that he put, or if not more, all around the kingdom of Amarna. So yeah, and you can see his strange body type here with Nefertiti behind him, and then these tiny versions of, you know, his children or followers. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's actually something here that almost looks like it could be similar to an arc kind of idea. And you see the Aten, you know, is always expressed as the sun, being this obviously a perfect symbol of the universal creative source of the universe, all life. And you always see it handing out with these hands, like the rays coming off with hands that have the Ankh in them often. And it's the Aten giving life to him and Nefertiti and his family. And then you have this whole passage of hieroglyphs that's explaining this is the kingdom of Akhenaten. So yeah, just for a visual on what you're talking about, it's really awesome to hear you read parts of one of them. I don't know which one it is, but I think these were all describing his story.
It's the biggest one. It's the biggest one. And you know, also something very, very interesting, that they have been found so far 16. They are all surrounding the main city, and they have named them after letters of the alphabet, making implicit that there are 26 through all the letters of the alphabet, because they start with A and they go skipping the letters depending, for instance, A, B, F, H, you know, K, L, I, you know, like then going all the way to R, S, O, and then they finish. But it's like they know that there are 26, and 26 in gematria is another fundamental number. That's why even Yahweh is the gematria for Yahweh, you know, for the name of Yahweh. So there is a lot of knowledge that is connected. I mentioned to you that there is an author, Karim. His name, he's Lebanese, and his name is, I will tell you now. His name is Karim El Kousa, and he has several books, and in one of his books, he relates not only the Jesus to be Phoenician, because he relates the Phoenician to be Essenes, you know?
Or at least a faction. Because I know there's
Yes.
also the dark faction and the people that made the the English language.
Yeah. 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 You know, there is a lot, and even the Templar cross, because there is the island of Malta, you know, and they have the cross of Malta, and it's very close to Lebanon and to yeah, but anyway, that's another topic.
Ooh, and that goes into the thing that Trevor brought up, where like the Akhenaten faction, the Scythians, this royal family, that this connection, what you were saying, the Peruvians, the Scotland, Ireland, Nova Scotia, and fleeing to those back to those places, that there's a connection to an ancient mystery school that like would be like secret orders of people that knew things, the original Hebrews, or the original like ones that carried that language, the people that knew ancient astronomy, astrology, the grid lines, geomancy. You could imagine like secret wizard schools that existed in various places that then got destroyed over time. That this seems to be connected to, and also these lineages with like what you're saying of son of Thoth, or the Thoth lineages, or these lineages of gods from Atlantis, and the wars between them, and the dynasties, and what they continue into now in passing their genetics down to us, because like pretty much everyone that's human hails from some origin that could be called a lower G god, of like, you know, like Ptah, Huti, Ra, the different lineages in Mexico, like with Quetzalcoatl, and the different dragon lineages of Asia, that, you know, there's like different genetic introducers that like have like this thing, this chess game from higher dimensions playing out among us today. If anyone wants to comment on it.
Yeah. Well, there have always been good initiates as well as bad, I think. You know, there have always been secret schools of the righteous ones that are aware of what's going on, and there's always been a kind of balance, but it's kind of an ancient war that I think, yeah, you're hitting on it. It's bigger than our world, I think, but our world is involved in it. To be honest, if we want to go there, I mean, I think there's a lot of evidence for that, but
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I would love to ask each one of you, of us, to say some words for the audience, you know, based on the connection, the very special connection that each one of us have with the topic that brought us here together. It has been a wonderful time. We have been talking for around 2 hours and 30 minutes. So
What?
yeah, just I would
Oh.
love to keep on sharing with you. I'm quite sure that we will have another opportunity. So yeah, it's also getting late for Alessandra. So yeah, we will definitely find another time to continue sharing about this and many more topics. They can just flow. So yeah, Alessandra, what would you like to say to the audience?
Oh, what would I like to say? Really, and it sounds very simplistic, but for everybody, where possible, to just come out from here to be in here. The heart, you know, unity consciousness is all about living in the heart, acknowledging that we are all children, doesn't matter the skin, the religion, children of our mother, father, shimmering light birther of all. And that's all there is. We are all one. Everything else is false perception. And really, if we could just remember that, remember that we are all one. There's nothing out there. And to accept responsibility for our lives. There is nothing out there that is doing something to us. That's a big thing, taking responsibility for our life. What happens in our life? Nobody ever does, in this part of the teachings, AKHETATEN and down to YssaH, nobody ever does anything to us. And nobody really is a victim. We all need to take responsibility for what happens in our life. And we need to return to our hearts and move out of our mind, our head, into the monkey mind. It doesn't serve us. That we really just need to remember we are all one. All of us. You know, there's different bodies. Like, there's your body, everyone. It's me. And we all come from different star systems and lineages, but there's only one mother, father, shimmering light, birther of all. Only one. We can't comprehend that, but there is only one source of all, and we are all their children. And it behooves us to begin to get on in the world, you know, and to recognize there's no separation except, you know, there is no separation. Anyway, thank you. Sorry if I'm waffling on.
Thank you. Thank you
for joining us.
Yes.
Trevor, you have any inspirational words for our audience? And then also we'll have you guys give your information so people can reach you.
Yeah, well said, Alessandra. I think this was Akhenaten's message. This was Thoth Jehuti's message. This was Jesus, Yeshua's message. And I think the entire message of Egypt, it's not about Akhenaten or anyone specific. It's about who it's really about is you when you go to visit. It's about Egypt is telling you who you are. And the central message of unity of all things, the central unity of all life in the universe. I totally agree with Alessandra. This is at the very heart of what it's actually saying. Is it's about what we can apply into our own understanding of who we are and how we are a part of this bigger thing. And when you go to Egypt and when you start looking at Akhenaten and this whole story, you know, and I'm talking about these monotheistic religions popping up later because of what he had done, but I don't really mean those religions. You know, today we see the religions built on the prophets' names and they're misinterpreting and gatekeeping these messages. I'm speaking about the actual messages of the inspired prophets, the real message that, you know, Jesus, Yeshua, he said the same thing as Akhenaten. He said, we are all one, we are all connected to this divine source. It's about, exactly as Alessandra said, living out of the heart is a different intelligence than what you have in the brain. It's a different way of operating, rather than, you know, and I was just talking to Money Safes today about who is my favorite. I mean, this conversation I just had with him in two parts. One half is already out and one coming out this Sunday. We really spoke about, you know, he said there is this other thing, other intelligence from the heart. Drumville Melchizedek, he talks a lot about that too, living in the heart versus, you know, living in the head. And it's a different intelligence that you live from when you're intuitively tapped into what's going on. And when you start to, if you're trapped in the rational, you know, mind just looking at things analytically and not I don't know, feeling into it at all, opening yourself up to the energies and the some of the topics and ideas that go outside of the comfort zone of a lot of people. They're limiting themselves based on what the, you know, cognitive dissonance, basically, like what's too far outside the realm of their worldview to actually accept as even a possibility. But I think, yeah, you're both helping open this conversation up, and it does have to blend over into the side of extraterrestrials and ufology, and actually taking all the potential seriously into the debate, because there is something about Amarna and AKHETATEN that is pivotally crucial to our entire human story, to the entire lineage of these later prophets, messiahs, even Lao Tzu or Confucius and Leonardo da Vinci, like I say, Nikola Tesla, all of these things are connected. And these are people who also gave us, a type of vision of what it takes to actually unlock that within yourself, open your third eye, connect to the source. And, the Egyptians, I think, had a science out of this. And this is what both Jehuti, the teachings, are actually about. It's a science of opening up that inner knowledge where you connect to the mind and memory of the universe itself, ultimate knowledge, the Akashic field, all these things we hear about. So anyway, I'm with Alessandra on this. It is about finding unity and oneness, what the Egyptians called the return to source doctrine, and the unification and balancing all opposing forces to reach an understanding of yourself that actually allows you to, I don't know, bring back some of this knowledge that was here back then, and move humanity forward collectively when we tap into that individually. So I also just want to thank all three of you for setting this up and joining. I'm so glad we got the technical stuff worked out. And
Yes.
Alessandra, you did so great, working all week to try and make sure you could get a connection. So I'm so glad you were
Thank
able
you
to.
for helping.
Yes, my pleasure, our pleasure, for sure.
So thank you for the kind words. Alessandra, can you tell people how people can reach
Sorry.
you or follow you?
Oh, wait.
Sorry.
Your words.
Oh,
Sorry.
no problem. Can you tell people how people can reach you, get a hold of you, or your projects coming up, or books, or anything you want to mention for the audience?
Oh, well, actually, I didn't, wasn't sure that we could manage to sort out all those technical difficulties, but Jehuti worked a bit of magic, I think, with the help of Akhenaten.
Yes, definitely.
Start with a view to that, but also if we did manage to connect, I started a group, and I've called it Akhenaten, Jehuti, Ancient Origins, and Lineal Descendants, which covers a lot of territory. But I thought it would open up a space where those who wish to could join together there to connect a lot of dots and kind of help to bring the puzzle together, to create the bigger picture, and like a heart space with no ego, no antagonism, no disrespect, just okay, that's your point of view, and I respect that. Just coming together in a heart space and sharing, because all of this is so important, what we are talking about and what we are remembering. So anyway, I've started that group and I've invited some friends, and I thought maybe if you guys wanted to share the group, and
Sure.
I don't know what, do you know, like when I started the group, I put Akhenaten, and then I put a star, and then I put Jehuti, and then I put a star. But when it came out on the page, the stars became question marks.
Oh.
And I can't find that group. So it's like, people are going to think, what's going on? But those question marks were supposed to be stars, and I can't get in to change the name. Do you guys know how to do that?
Maybe.
Anyway, I won't waste your time here. Maybe you can, somebody could help me with that.
Yeah.
So please come and join, because we can extend this whole conversation.
Yeah.
And like there are so many other people with.
It can also be showing that it's a question mark, not as a doubt, yet as a whole story to be unveiled. And it's a question mark because there is nothing written yet.
A mystery school, right? Still being made in the know.
Yes.
I did try to look at it that way.
Yeah, I can also reach out to you later after you will figure it out. Everything is being given, and
or not.
Yeah, and you're being held by the force and consciousness of AKHETATEN for sure. So
This group's
yeah,
on where? Facebook.
Facebook, yeah.
Okay, Facebook. Yep.
Yeah.
Send
How
stuff
about
we'll put in the description.
yeah, and how about you, Trevor? How can people reach out to you?
Books, conferences, events coming up, places you're going.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think it's great. Starting a Facebook group is a good idea because I think there are a lot of people who feel really a strong connection to the Amarna period and to Akhenaten. So it's a great idea to make a group and start. Everyone's trying to pull together on this. Everyone's remembering things in their own ways, and um, yeah, that's great. I think we could do more talks about this in the future. I'm certainly open to it. And there's footage I could bring or share if we have want to do some more of that. You guys probably have photos and footage
Yeah,
get
yeah,
deeper into it. I have my YouTube channel. It's just called Trevor Grassi. That's got all my work, my films and stuff are just on that channel. I do have my website I'm finally starting to use. It's called opusmagnum.org, but it barely has anything on it, but I'm just starting to build it up because I'm getting it on a private server finally after many years of not being able to use it at all. But yeah, I'm on Facebook sharing a lot. I have a group there called Opus Magnum Group. But if anyone wants to actually contact me or reach out to me, they could do it that way. I'll definitely join Alessandra's group here. And yeah, we do have some, I don't know, there's so much coming up this year. A few conferences, my first few conferences I'm going to be doing. The one is Cosmic Summit in about a month we're going to do in North Carolina. That's going to be a really exciting one. We're getting Armando and Filippo from the Kafka project are going to be there. I'm going to give a little introduction to them, and they're going to explain a lot more about their discoveries using the satellite cards.
Awesome.
There are a few others coming up later in the year, some cool conferences, and many more interviews coming up, but a lot of that hasn't quite been announced yet, so I can't really say exactly, but there's a few more towards the end of the year. I'm working on setting up a tour for myself as well as potentially jumping on some other friends' tours if I can. But it's going to be an exciting year. A lot of stuff's going to be coming out. And yeah, by the end of the year, like December, the Copper Project, they're going to come out with another press conference in December, and they're going to explain all of what they're scanning the entire Giza Plateau right now. So we're going to get so much more from them by the end of the year at their next press conference, and
Oh, I can imagine.
so
They
much.
found they found another Osiris, let's say Osiron, in but in the by the Red Mountain, Gebel Ahmar.
I
Where?
know what you mean, like a couple years ago or two.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have to. She was going to say them. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
And
Yeah.
we just see that the Osiris shaft at Giza goes way deeper than anyone thought too. And yeah, tie that to the Osirian at Abydos and getting to scan some of these other locations, hopefully in the future.
I'm looking forward if they can do that scan on that area behind the Muslim cemetery. I'm quite sure there's a spaceship there. You know, it's the first place that I went there. I know that it's like a huge, but you know, that's the first place that I went to when I was in Giza Plateau, and I stayed hours there, and it was this yeah, many things being shown to me, many, and I have talked to very good friends that are you know, like scientists, and yeah, they agree on this. Actually, yeah, they quite agree on this. So we'll see.
So you got any books you're gonna write, or what are the conferences you're going to?
Cosmic Summit is next month. I'm gonna try and go to Brian's conference. I'm not gonna speak there, but I'm hoping we're gonna get to at least get me down there and hang out for that one.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
I'm gonna do the Yeah, I don't think the poster announcement is out, but I'm going to be doing the Pyramid Conference at the Pyramid House in Chicago in September. Um, which I don't know if you've heard of that. There's a guy built a replica of the Great Pyramid, and it's amazing place. But they do a pyramid energy conference there every year. I'm going to do that one, and yeah, the rest I don't think I can really talk about until they're a little more get the. But some of them are very, very exciting.
Yes, indeed.
So yeah, and then I have a book actually series that's absurdly it's like it's about 3,000 pages in total right now, and I'm trying to get the first volume of it published. I've actually got Manu Safe today looking at it right now. He's gonna get me some notes, which is
Yes.
he's like my absolute favorite of the person I trust most, and he's gonna if he can give me a structural analysis, at least of the basics of this book, I'm finally going to be ready to release it after like 20 years of writing. Like, just keeps growing and growing. But
Congratulations.
try and get that one out this year at least.
Well, congratulations for all of that. And yeah, much more to come, definitely.
Hopefully we can sync up in different times when if you're in Egypt and we're in Egypt at the same time, or if you ever want to come down to Mexico, we got crazy stuff here, and it all seems to connect to Egypt.
Are you planning on going to Egypt anytime soon, or?
Yeah, next year I feel that everything will be
We're syncing up
aligned into it.
other groups.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm setting up one other, hopefully soon, I'm going to do a talk with my friend Marco Vigado. I don't know if you know of him. He's working at Mitla, the site Mitla.
Yeah.
This is one of the most important Mexican underworld entrances.
Yeah.
An amazing project there. It's called the ARCS project. You can look it up. They're doing these scans underground and seeing the entire extent of this huge underground network there. It's like the underground abode of the Zapotec kings, and it's always been known as like an entrance to the underworld, just like Giza, and he's doing amazing work uncovering that. And I know we're going to be getting into Teotihuacan soon too. I've explored at least one tunnel under Teotihuacan that went pretty deep. That could have been just an aqueduct or something, but there's definitely a lot going on underneath there, obviously. So Mexico, yeah, I would like to get there soon, and Guatemala, if I can.
Let us know whenever you come, and we can also take you to very unique places, very virgin.
Exotic, and some of the artifacts we're finding has Egyptian hieroglyphs on it, so we'd love to get your perspective.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of what you were saying yesterday with who was it? Oh, you're talking to Brad Olson.
Brad Olson,
yeah. And, yeah, showing some of those. That's really cool. And I know what's it like Josh Sisler, and I don't know if you know them. Some other friends are also uncovering all these artifacts that have, Anubis and Egyptian hieroglyphs, and I'm just like, I don't know, but I've also, was at a conference last year with Scott Wolter, who's like a forensic geologist, and he's looking at him with me, shoulder to shoulder, and he's taking it seriously, and like they've done a lot of testing on him. So I'm like, okay, well, certainly can't prove this isn't real. And they have similar things like you guys are finding.
Come here, you'll find the proof yourself. We'll run you through some things that will like blow your mind.
Yes.
Yeah, the stones that take the light in when you shine the flashlight. I've seen some of those, and very interesting stuff. There's some potentially Olmec pyramids I've got a lead on too they just look like hills. No one knows about them, but
yes, I've seen now some of that. A lot of pyramids are coming into the surface, also in Guadalajara, and other places as well. But a friend of mine, he has a PhD in archaeology, Mayan archaeology, and he was invited to be in a program of David Lim in National Geographic, and they did some LiDAR on a lagoon, like it's in a remote area, Metzabok. I took him to that along with a group, and they found what seems to be pyramids in the very same shape like the Giza ones.
Cool.
Yes. So a lot of things coming up now. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Well,
definitely
yes,
let you know if I'm coming back to Mexico. It'd be fun. We could go see some
Um,
stuff. I'd love to go back to Monte Alban. I think that might be one of my favorites. You know, Monte Alban. The
beautiful.
mountain. Mm.
yeah, let us know, please. It'll be fun. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Yes.
Did you want to say how people can reach you?
Yeah, and I just want to say because I was yeah, I just want to say some words in relation to what we were talking about. Is that for me, what we know as evil is amnesia. Amnesia that deprives people or beings from the unity consciousness. The moment that we remember that we all come from the very same source, then there is no evil. So may we all come to remember progressively who we are, why we're here for, and acknowledge that the answer is simpler than what we believe. Is not full of adornments. It's just simple. We are love. What we know as love. We are bliss. And the more that we are coherent with ourselves, the more that the universe is coherent with us. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, forgetting, lack, non-wholeness, overwhelmed with negative energy, separation, ego. Um, yeah, that leads to it. Yeah. How do people reach you?
Telepathically. Just kidding. Yeah,
Send an
as
owl.
well, but yeah, no.
Send an owl to her.
Yeah, no. Well, you can enter to my website. I will write the name of the website below because it's a little bit not in this language or anyone known. So and as well as my mail of nivision.hunuk at outlook.com. And yeah, you can check my media, Facebook, YouTube channel. This video will be uploaded in all my platforms. And we have an upcoming trip to Mexico in October and November. We will be going to many sites, Campeche, Yucatan, central Mexico, and also to a very specific land of Quetzalcoatl, where he was there for quite a long time, coming from one place to another.
His family of the dragon species is there.
Yeah, it's known as one of the places is Portal de Quetzalcoatl. But if you want to know more about the trip, just write to my email or his email, trip inquiry. Yeah, upcoming conference presentations. Full disclosure now, conference, Florida, and the alien event.
People can buy tickets in the description. And some of the top videos, there's a discount code, 17% off. Full disclosure, movement.org is, I think, where you get the tickets.
Yes, I have been writing the discount that you can access to and the link where to buy your tickets. So we'll be adding it also to this video. You can access to my discount or to his, and yeah, you will see us there, and hopefully Trevor as well.
Yeah.
And yes,
say hello.
Yes,
Summon some aliens with us.
And also, I'm sorry, what did you say?
I was talking to Brian about trying to go last year. He invited me to speak last year even, but yeah, if I can at least just go as I've got a friend I can stay with there, and so
We can talk, no, we can talk about that later. I'll write to you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do a
We
great
can figure it out.
presentation.
Yeah.
Well, it's usually the hotel that kills me. It's like the flight's okay, but yeah, I have a friend right near there. He said I could stay with him, Draco.
Oh, awesome. Oh, Draco?
Yeah, so that could help a lot. But Brian's trying to help me afford to get down there too. Is awesome. He's doing
Yes.
awesome work. I just did a
Yes.
really cool interview with him like a week ago or something that gets into the Romanian Sphinx. Really interesting stuff too. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm
Yes.
happy to support him, but maybe I'll speak there next year. We'll see. But I'll try and be there this year. It sounds like I can.
That will be awesome. And yeah, he's an amazing being. And it will be lovely to see you there. And yeah.
Definitely.
Then lots to talk about. Lots to talk about. So anyway, yeah, and you will see the level of energy, like flows there. It's like very high energy, a little bit of everything, but overall, like a lot of unity. So it's
Yeah.
it's it's amazing, amazing. And anyway, also the Alien event in Las Vegas in September. You can also get your tickets in the alienevent.com. I will be giving 2 presentations there. And yeah, so you
Yeah,
can
I
get your
was
tickets.
also invited to that one too, but I didn't work that out either. I've kind of been hesitant to join the the conference presentation route, but I at least like attending them. So I don't know, we'll see. But maybe I'll join that one next year too if I can. But yeah, it sounds good.
The thing is that with everything that you have been uncovering at this moment, you need a lot of energy. And so, and you are wise and you know it. So you also don't want to, like go all over it. You're taking your time, you're allowing yourself, so that's
Yeah.
very intelligent. That's very wise of you. So yes, yes. So looking forward, we wish we could assist to the ones that you're going to, but at least I know we will meet in the full disclosure now event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds like
How about you?
I'm Sean Bond, founder of Sonic League, sonicleague.com, sonicleague@gmail.com. If you want to do the trip inquiry for the Mexico trip or other things like we're going to do in Egypt or Japan, some other places. If you're interested in those or other things you want, just let us know. We'll add to the email list to get updates. Yeah, I'll be at the Alien event, teaching people telepathic communication for ET contact, as well as the Full Disclosure Now, fulldisclosuremovement.org. Get the tickets and the passcode in this video or some of the other live videos we did. Get it there. And yeah, we do mystical healing, clearing, deep possession, abundance upgrades. Got a lot of things in live shows you can tune into on my channel, Sonic League. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all X, all the other stuff. And yeah, look for new shows coming up. And we'll be doing meditations in the future and some other things that you can look forward to. And we got our shop up, so you can get some of the products like the abundant shirts and some other things, and we're starting to put more and more up. So look for that on like sonicleague.com. And thank you very much for coming on,
Thank you,
Trevor.
Trevor.
And honored to have you. Would love to have you on more. You packed full of knowledge. My God. And yeah, feel free to upload. We'll send you the copy or whatever to this. Then the nice edit we're gonna do for this video. And you feel
Yes.
free to upload that.
well,
Yeah,
thank you so
spread
much.
around your knowledge.
Yeah,
Get
so
this
much
out there, everyone.
from me and Alessandra both. I know we lost her here at the end, but I'm sure she would also be saying thanks so much for having us both. It's been an awesome talk. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for all the information that you're bringing out. Thank you for exploring the YssaH Plateau at such a hardcore level. I'm going to tell you later about my adventures. I also was there at night, sleeping there, but yeah, another topic. And yeah, I could see you there on the tunnels. I can see your passion for the coding and everything that you do, and that is inspiring. And I do believe that through inspiration is that actually we get to expand our message, not imposing or selling. It's more about inspiring. So thank you for inspiring a lot of people. And yeah, congratulations.
Hopefully by the end of this year, it'll be more about excavating than inspiring, but that's
It will. Yeah, you will move to the next stage. Yeah. Well, you can also do that. Well, yeah, we can talk about that later. We can definitely talk about that later. We are creating a huge network, and together we grow stronger for sure.
So everyone out there, smash that like, leave a comment, showing Trevor some love. Subscribe to Trevor Grassi's channel on YouTube and ours and YssaH's, and share this with 5 friends. Share this with people that love Egyptian stuff. Share this with people who love secret history. Get it out there, and the more we see that people like this, then we'll want to do more of these shows. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Love you all. Until next time.